Okay, hello to everyone. I hope you're all doing great. I'm here joined by Adam Powe. He's a pro natural bodybuilder. He's actually an Olympian champion of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's also my coach. Yeah, for quite some time. So, first of all, yeah, first of all, thank you for being a part of this. Because I'll translate it to Greek anyways. But yeah, how about you say some things about yourself and your career?
Yeah, of course. I've been competing in bodybuilding since I was 19 years old. So it's been some time now, I think about 6 years in terms of competing. Trained for around coming up to 11 years soon. And I began coaching in a serious way, I'd say in 2021. Before that, I was still coaching, but I was at university studying, so I didn't want to let it take away from my ability to focus on my studies and stuff. But that's my absolute career now, and just bringing a lot of people to the stage as well, and prepping coaching both bodybuilders but also lifestyle clients, but mostly a lot of guys with goals of stepping on stage in natural bodybuilding. I'm also a turned pro in 2022, and I'm coming back to the stage in 2025 to compete as my pro debut. So right now just working towards that, but I'm also a dad. I've got my son is 2.5 years old, and just focusing on my business, coaching, and also just dad life as well. But I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, the son, I can confirm he's got the genetics and the work ethic from you. So, to everyone watching from Greece, let me be clear. The goal of this discussion is actually to promote Greek natural bodybuilding or natural bodybuilding in general. And with the help of Adam, change the perspective of people's minds. So, I have some questions for you, Adam. Also, I'll have the links of his Instagram and social media down below if anyone wants to follow him or his journey. So, first question for you, Adam. What do you think is the #1 reason that people don't believe in natural bodybuilding?
So I think the biggest reason people don't believe in natural bodybuilding is because a lot of people don't really understand, firstly, what genetics can do, but also what consistency can do. So those two things. So I would say if you've got a sample of people that take steroids, but don't take their training seriously enough, or they don't nail their nutrition consistently, they're not going to see that good results, and therefore won't recognize that actually you can get a lot more from it without drugs, doing those things first. And then at the same time, people with poor genetics, let's say you get a sample of people that take steroids but with poor genetics, don't recognize that people with good genetics could be building a lot more muscle than them naturally. I think I always make the comparison with people that compete in the Olympics. So let's take Usain Bolt, for example. No one goes, oh, I can't run as fast as him, but I took all the steroids in the world, he has to be on steroids. People kind of understand that he's a freak, like a genetic freak, and that's why he runs that fast. But when it comes to physique development, it's a very different thing. People, I think there's a bit of a macho-ness around it and an ego around it, where people refuse to accept that other people are better than them at doing that. Maybe you just can't build muscle that well, That's the harsh reality for a lot of people. So I think that's why a lot of people don't appreciate natural bodybuilding, because they don't believe in it, like you said. And yes, it's frustrating, but I think with time people are starting to realize it more, but it's taking time.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great answer, to be honest. So let me give you a reality check for here in Greece. We have a lot of people using PEDs from an early age for their reasons. We also don't have any confirmed natural organizations that do real testing in order for you to compete as a natural bodybuilder. So we have some federations, it's from the IFBB and the Greek Federation, that you can compete. Actually, they say you can compete as a natural, but there are a lot of people using as well. So we don't have any WMBF or maybe any show close like to UKDFBA maybe. None of that. So here in Greece, everyone pretty much uses, or those that don't use, they don't have really appealing physiques, you know. I have made some videos in the past in my YouTube channel talking about natural bodybuilding, and I had a lot of comments from great athletes that maybe use PEDs, but they're great athletes with great physiques, that there is no natural bodybuilding. The body cannot go that far as muscle mass or even condition in every show. And what's your opinion on that? How accurate are the tests? Talked about WMBF or even some other federations, and most of them say that you can cheat, you can play in a show as enhanced without anyone noticing. So based on your opinion, how accurate are these tests? Can you actually cheat?
Yeah. So there are some inconsistencies across certain different federations with testing. I know the UKDFBA, invests a lot of money into like proper urine testing. Like sometimes testing with urinalysis isn't done like the best way in certain federations. Some do more. I think ultimately the testing is, with urine testing, like in theory you could go off for a while, and then if you're off for a certain amount of time, it might not show in your urine sample. However, I think one thing that we should recognize with that is, like, if you went off steroids for a long period of time before the show, you would look significantly worse than how you would have looked before you went off. So all you need to do is go on their Instagram, look at them in their bulk, or during their time away from the stage, or looking at them at 20 weeks out or whatever, versus at the show. If they look significantly smaller, that's a huge red flag. But you look at the best natural bodybuilders, none of them look worse. They look 10 times better. They look way better when they step on stage, and that says everything you need to know, that they're not going off and cheating. Another thing to correct that issue is, like, you could do polygraph testing. So some shows do lie detector testing. So you'll get sat down, do a lie detector test, and they'll ask you a bunch of questions. And obviously that's a very effective way to figure out if someone's taking steroids. However, I actually have heard, like, maybe certain situations with some individuals where they've actually been natural and they've panicked and they failed the test. So because obviously if you're nervous and you might be really on edge, it could actually, someone that's pretty natural, they could maybe get found as cheating when they weren't cheating. But that's the extreme that would work. Like, if you're doing a lie detector test, like, that's probably the most far away you could test someone. So, and there's shows that do that. So, I mean, and in some of these shows, some have seen some absolutely crazy natural bodybuilders from them. So if they're passing these tests, it just shows how far you can take it. Another thing I think that I'd like to see maybe done a little bit more, though, is like testing within the off season. Like, why not just, professionals just being like, all right, you need to come for a test. It's you're in your off season. You're just, and like random testing. So you don't know when you're gonna get asked. I think that would be such a good thing to do. Also, it's just whether the federations would want to be spending that money, but I think they should, because it's the more we can make natural bodybuilding believed in, the better return they're going to get in terms of business.
Yeah, that's great. I think some natural federations like WMBF, they invite their pros mid-season to come for a testing. I think I have heard of that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, based on your experience, what do you think it takes to become a natural bodybuilder, a great natural bodybuilder, or even a champion natural bodybuilder, a pro natural? What it takes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the biggest thing it would take to be a top level natural bodybuilder is patience and just chasing more delayed gratification. So like something later down the line, as opposed to like the short term, trying to be shredded, trying to step on stage every year. If you can be patient and just be relentlessly consistent with your training, if you can focus on getting really strong in the gym and get obsessed with that over how you look in 4 weeks' time for your holiday or anything like that, you're going to go very far as a natural bodybuilder later down the line. If you can do that for 10 years, where are you going to be? Like, you're going to be in a really good position. When you look at all the best natural bodybuilders, the thing they have is time. They've been training for 10 plus years, and that's why they're good. And I think you don't actually know many people who have trained for 15 plus years consistently like that aren't that good. You're going to at least have a decent physique. Obviously, genetically, that makes a big difference, but you're still going to have a good, impressive physique. And I've seen people with pretty mediocre genetics work extremely hard and build something very, very good. So it's the mindset, it's the resilience, it's the patience, I would say. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, you said you don't have the urge to compete every year. Can you go through that? Like, do you need some gaining phases in order to compete and be better each year, or in a few years?
So I put it this way: like, if you have good genetics, you could probably improve every year and compete every year and see some improvements. But like, are you really fulfilling that ceiling, that potential? You could probably be going a lot further. I made the error of competing way too much when I was younger, like just for no reason. I still improved, but I didn't like. I could be way better like now if I didn't do that, for sure. Like this time I took off, this is my first 2 years off from competing, and it's making a huge difference to my physique. And at a point in time where I'm quite far into my training career as well. So if I did that when I was younger, I probably would have just seen crazy improvements very across that time frame. Certain people, if they compete every year, they're not going to see barely any improvements. Like, it's really important to be doing growing phases where you hit 10, 11, 12 months in a surplus. Like that can be really effective. And it's like, for example, with my client Richard, he competed last year, turned pro. And just so I'll explain where he's at right now. So he was 95 kilos on stage, completely shredded, like completely peeled. Right now he's 109 kilos, okay? So in the space of like 6-7 months, he's gone up 13, 14 kilos from being completely shredded at quite a high body weight already. So as a percentage increase, it's not that much. Now he could easily gain like another 10 kilos and still be in a good position and still grow loads. So if he was going to compete this year, he would have lost so much runway and so much growth to really push his physique upwards. And even if he was to compete, so he was going to compete in May, June next year, but we've pushed it back just because this current push-up, we don't need to diet yet, and I'd rather him keep going and maybe just competing later into 2025. So it just shows like steady, slow growing phases are the best, and just maximizing the time you can go.
I've seen Richard. He's actually Titan. He's quite tall as well. I think he's super lean right now as well at 108. Yeah,
he is. He's in a really good shape. Yeah.
So I think you have seen a client of mine that I've made a post recently about a transformation, a 2.5 year transformation.
Yeah, of course.
Alex, yeah. I made a video on him about how we lost some weight from him being obese to actually competing in a Greek show. As I said, he was competing against people being 20 kilos over him and on steroids, but we're quite, I'd say we did good against them.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of hate because a lot of people believe that this look being super shredded, super dry, and keeping fullness, muscle fullness, is impossible as a natural. So, what's your point of view on that, and how do you achieve a great look, a great stage-ready look as a natural bodybuilder?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot I could talk about with this because, firstly, some people, I've had it myself, like that level of roundness, that leanness is not possible naturally, and it's not even to do with fullness. It's not actual muscular fullness. It's shape. It's insertion.
Retention. Yeah.
So it's got nothing to do with being assisted or not. It's just to do with the shape across their physique, their genetics, their structure to have that bubbly look. So, like you can see if you probably looked at if he was lean when he was younger, you could probably see his shape, and if you could see like the roundness, he probably had like some sort of roundness there that, like not the muscularity, but you could see like if that was exaggerated, that's got nothing to do with like muscular size. It's just shape, and therefore doesn't relate to steroids. And then yeah, when it comes down to like retaining fullness whilst getting shredded, that again like doesn't change between the only difference between someone on steroids or not is that the person on steroids would be able to cope with a really fast rate of loss, so they could handle a fast rate of loss and retain fullness. If your client didn't have a fast rate of loss, or they went through like a good rate of loss and you used high days and you managed their retention well, they're going to hold fullness well because they went slowly. So if I have a client lose like 10, 12 kilos in 25 weeks really slowly, they're not going to lose that much fullness at all.
Yeah.
The thing that changes when you're on drugs is you can push for further in a growing phase and start prep later and just handle losing quicker because of the drugs in play that can help you keep your fullness basically. So yeah.
So yeah, let's say nutrition wise, we did go slower. Let's say we did lose 10 kg in 14 weeks, I think. We've had some refeeds, we did the reverse diet in the end, etc. Training wise, what do you think is the most important thing for a natural to keep his muscle, for muscle retention and his fullness, of course?
I think it's all about execution with training. Yeah, just really being in control of the weight and having complete ownership. Because if there's like if you're really quick with your momentum in your training, like a fast change of direction and lots of aggression, those things really thrive off body weight. So when body weight comes down, training in that way isn't gonna see you retain very well. So it's just about like having complete ownership where the movement relies on the contraction of your muscle, not like the momentum, elasticity, just like going like this, knee sleeves, stuff like that. Like it's really just control as much as you can, and also using movements that don't rely on leverages too much and rely on your internal stability to be high. So if you're getting lighter, it doesn't matter because there's enough stability in the movement already. So, you know, a barbell row probably isn't a good movement when you're dieting. Maybe a chest supported row, and then maybe just loading your erectors more in the hinge. And then, you know, like there's alterations to training around dieting that will help with retention as much as you can. But the most important thing is that like control element. Yeah.
Yeah. How about intensity? Do you change something as far as intensity? How about the program, the training program? Do you just keep doing what you did?
So when it comes down to intensity within the training, I would just, so this is for someone who already trains really hard. If they're taking sets all the way to complete failure, and if they're using a spot and they're taking those reps past failure, you probably benefit from taking away the spot, training with a close proximity to failure, but not doing things that are going to throw you off recovery wise. Obviously you'd have a spot on things that, you know, the safety element's important, but for the most part, I would say like just understanding where that failure point is, keeping training completely controlled in terms of intensity, so you can look at your volume and understand how to manage things with recovery. Because if your training intensity is changing, and like 1 week you train with, say you have like I've seen clients do this. You're in prep or you're dieting, and you meet with a friend at another gym, and you have this huge leg day, and then you're absolutely ruined recovery wise. So
Yeah.
because you both support each other, take loads of force reps, you train really hard, you think it was a great session, but you come out of it completely battered. So it's just about, and then you're really sore, and then you say to your coach, sorry, I'm really sore, and then the coach might think they need to bring your volume down, but actually it was the intensity. So it's just about keeping things really controlled. Yeah.
Consistent. Yeah. Let's say you set the standard. Anyways, you won't be groaning in a dieting phase, right? Especially in a competition prep. So are you going for PRs? Do you match the reps? How do you approach that?
I think in the earlier stages, like the first 10 weeks, if there's a progression to be taken and you know it's like your form's standardized, it's controlled, that progression is going to come and your form's already perfect, get after it, take them for sure. But one thing I'll say is, like, for most people, like, maybe their form could be a bit better. Like, a lot of people, their form could be a bit better. So when you're in that situation and you feel like you're going to take a progression, sometimes you got to think, okay, could I just retain with better form? Because that's like a continual positive process. It's like you retain with better form. Next week, you're probably going to retain it even easier because you use better form. And it's like, whereas you could look at it the other way and use bad form and you chase reps that aren't there, and you have to use worse form, and then it drops off more. So it can go one of two ways. It could go better over time, or it could get worse. So I just think keeping form really controlled. Yeah,
execution is super important. I'm sure of that. I've been a victim of that as well. I'd say you talked about failure, or a close proximity to failure. So there are some debates that training to failure, like rear 0 or rear 1, in each set is not optimal for a natural, as he will be getting a lot of fatigue and he won't be able to recover and build muscle or retain muscle in a dieting phase. What's your opinion on this? Can you train to failure or super close to failure as natural? Is that not optimal for the most part?
I think you can, but like just training to that failure point and not past it is really important. And like I said, going back to the point about volume and training to failure and stuff, it's like if you've been used to training to failure and you're adapted to that, and that's how you've been training the whole time in your growing phase, and you go into a deficit, you could, you keep training to failure, but then maybe the volume goes down, and that's how you bring things down to allow you to retain it like that. Or you train one RIR now, and then the volume maybe stays the same. But I think, the whole conversation around RIR training is something that shouldn't be pushed that hard. I think people should just learn how to train to failure, because like all these people talking about RIR now, seeing all the studies about training to failure and saying how important it is to train close proximity to failure. I feel like RIR stuff is now, people don't really talk about as much, and now people are just understanding the importance of just not going past failure. So I think if you tell a skilled athlete like how to do one RIR, I think it could be a really good thing. I think if you have someone that's like 1 or 2 years into training, or maybe like a first timer, or someone that's just like, still learning quite a few things with training, telling someone to start to train one RIR could be a big problem, because they could start training 3 RIR. And then like also with how fragile prep is in terms of your mindset and mentally and how you feel in the gym, you've got low energy, you feel like you're dragging, you're in a bad mood, and you're in this constant headspace of I'm training an RIR. I can see people starting to just lose the intensity when they're like that. Then just making sure people don't start just training not hard enough, and that, a lot of people make that error. They don't know how to train hard.
Yeah, I think lots of people, and I've talked about this, say that they train close to failure or to failure, and they may be 5 or 6 reps away from failure. So yeah, I think it's super important.
Another thing, so I just want to say as well, it's like you say training 5 to 6 reps away from failure, but I've seen people, they pretend like they're hitting failure. You know, that's such a common thing. People pretend like they're hitting failure, or they bring it to them, so they're like, "Oh, it's getting hard. Yeah, okay." Oh,
and they slow the reps. On their own.
Especially when people don't use powerful concentric phases. So your contraction needs to be explosive. So that's when you know when you fail, because you're like, and then it. But when people are like this the whole way, and then they're just like, "Oh, I think I've got one more." It's like, well, you're just not like,
It's super important for. I think it's a skill training to failure. You have to experience it, even if you don't want to train to failure in the future. But how do you know you're training rear 3 if you haven't experienced the rear 0?
Yeah, exactly. It's a skill, and I imagine if I started, so like the skill of training hard to failure with good form, with controlled, accurate form, doing both of those things is very hard together. You either have someone train really hard with bad form, or you have someone with really good form not train that hard. And I imagine if you've had people even like get pretty good at that skill, if you start telling them to start leaving reps in the tank all the time, like 2 reps in the tank or whatever, they might lose the ability to keep doing that over time, you know?
So based on that, I have 2 more questions for you, mate. What do you think is the most important thing about building muscle? What's the number one?
I think the number one most important thing to build muscle is training, like going back to that point, just training really hard, but being obsessed with your training to the point where you want to get strong, and you know, I think having that enjoyment with your training is so important. And I know there's like a lot of people like now to push new muscle on through volume, doing lots more volume, doing lots more sets, and that makes sense. But I think, you know, if you really want to last in this sport for ages and love it, the best way to add on new tissue is progressive overload in terms of performance and pushing, you know, improving performance. And I think if that enjoyment process, because that's the most enjoyable thing, like hitting new PRs in the gym, like that's what everyone loves in the gym, right? So I think the most important thing for building lots of muscle is loving that process as much as you can, because if you do that, you're always going to turn up. You're going to get excited to get in the gym. You're going to want to train hard. And once you have an individual like that, you can then be balanced out a little bit with being smart and training with good form and all that stuff, then they're going to go so far. Yeah.
So we'd say the number one combo is training close to failure, super hard, progressive overload, and keeping the execution correct, right? If you do these 3, that's the most part, we can talk about color surplus, etc., but we're talking training wise. Okay, mate, last question for you. Do you have anything to share to people watching, as far as people don't believing in natural bodybuilding, or even people that after this video wanna join and try to become a natural bodybuilder?
So I would say, if you want to really develop your physique naturally, I think love the process, you know, love the journey, enjoy the training, because if you do that, you're going to go far, and hitting your nutrition is going to be easy to do because you love the training. And if you don't hit your nutrition, the training's not going to follow suit. So I'd say to anyone that's wanting to become a natural bodybuilder, all that stuff, you know, just fall in love with the process, the day in, day out work, instead of thinking about stepping on stage, and that will come. And you know, if you do that first, like I got into competing because I love training. I didn't get into training because I wanted to compete, and it needs to be that way around. You know, that's the key way for really building a positive relationship with your training. That will see you keep at it long term. That's what I would always recommend. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Okay, thank you for doing this. I'm actually honored for you to be my coach and being a part of this. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, guys, anyone that wants to follow Adam, I'll leave his links down below in the description. Thank you for having me. I really appreciated it. It's good to kind of spread the message, you know, in Greece. You know, I really enjoyed it. And to anyone watching,
you've been in Greece,
you know. Yeah, I have. And yeah, it's clearly a good bodybuilding community that I can see that for sure. And You know, I think yeah, natural bodybuilding is starting to really pick up across the globe, and you know, doing things like this is only going to help. And yeah, if anyone's watching and anyone had any questions or wanted to ask anything furthermore about any specifics, or you know, they just wanted to reach out, just drop me a message on Instagram. I'll see your message, and you can also inquire for coaching through my link on my Instagram, which will take you to the WhatsApp as well. But yeah, thank you for having me, mate. It's been an honor to chat with you on here as well, and yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Okay, guys. So till next time.
Have a yelate ke ne gymnasiste.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. Okay, see ya.
This should have typed out.